Welcome to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road, sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron, a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, and offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and the nation's capital. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. We're your hosts. I'm Rich, a recovered drug addict.
My name is Jerry. I'm a sober alcoholic.
And let's let everybody know, like we always do, Jerry, why do we do this show?
Trudge the Road is a radio program which is dedicated to people who suffer from the disease of addiction to drugs and alcohol. And, of course, family members, every bit as important. We know that you suffer tremendously, and we know that you've got tons of questions, and that's our goal, is to answer some of those questions so that eventually we can, with the good grace of God, provide a solution to this incredible dilemma, addiction.
We have a website, trudgetheroadradio.com. I encourage you to go there. You can find out about past episodes, what's going on with TTR, things of that nature. It's also a connection to YouTube, where you can catch prior episodes. We have a YouTube channel. It's Trudge the Road Radio. It's also a place where you can send an email if you want to get in touch with Jerry, myself, Matt, the producer. We have our email addresses up there as well. Facebook, we have a Facebook page, Trudge the Road Radio. Love for you to like us. And also we have a Twitter feed, which is at TTR Show. Jerry, we have a great show coming up today. Ann Smith is going to be joining us.
Ann is one of the finest clinicians in the world. You may have seen her on Dateline NBC. She's been in Newsweek, Us Magazine, Red Book, U.S. News and World Report, The Washington Post, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Psychology Today. She's authored several books, and she's in charge of a program called Breakthrough. And we've discussed that before here on Trudge the Road. And it's an innovative program for adults who are struggling, or may I say suffering, with relationship patterns developing from early attachment injuries in core relationships, which is a psychological way of saying some of those bad things that happened to us in childhood will really come and haunt us back in adulthood, and we really can't identify them. You know, why am I feeling this way? Why am I behaving this way? And this program is designed to go back to that child and find out what happened, what traumatic event that scarred your soul, if you will, that still causes you issues today, and bring them to conclusion. Whether you're an addicted person or not, but especially for addicted people, because most of us do have childhood issues which can affect us in sobriety. Certainly is the case with me. And she'll talk a lot about relationships. And just speaking for myself, but not alcoholics in general, as everybody in this room knows, I've had a little trouble with relationships. You know?
No.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, my sponsor, they said, no, Jerry, you're not dating anybody for a couple of years. And when that couple of years came up, I said, it's time for me to get a girlfriend. And the first thing they said, well, good luck with that, Jerry. You're the night manager in a homeless shelter and you ride the bus. Better hope that girl lives on the bus line. That ego of mine, don't look about things of that nature. As a matter of fact, he went to the extent, he said, Jerry, if we brought 10 very pretty girls in here that you've never met in your life, and we're going to give you the opportunity to choose one and take them out to dinner and a movie. You never met them before. You just got to pick one of these crazy girls. He said, you'll go for the crazy one just like a magnet. Just boom. Because that's what I was interested in. I only know sick relationships, and to learn how to have a healthy relationship, certainly, it takes time. We maybe shouldn't use me as an example for that, but it does take time, and it does work. And Ann is the one who really has a great plan for us, and I'm really excited to see her.
Well, it's a new year, and maybe this year will be the year that you'll find a girlfriend on the bus line.
I don't have a bus pass anymore. I've got an old car.
Well, there you go. What did you call your old car there?
The first one was the alcoholic hippie social worker mobile. The Alpine Hero is what I have now.
Would you say it was like $200 and you were still making payments on it?
It was a $200 car I was making payments on. And I was grateful to have it. And speaking of cars, and if I could a little bit about Trudge the Road, as you know, I've been away for almost 3 weeks. And some absolutely remarkable things happened in regards to this program and in regards to recovery that, if I could just take a second to share. I went to Louisville, Kentucky. I got sober in Louisville, Kentucky, and I went there to participate in a winter conference as well as speak. And I got a taste of kind of what it's like to be new in recovery, because they sent this young man to pick me up at the airport, and he'd only been sober maybe a month, 5-6 weeks, and he was excited to pick me up. And we got into the car, and we're starting to drive towards a hotel, and the signal light changes. And he goes, God, I hate it when that happens. Sound like an alcoholic. And I said to him, it's okay, it'll change back. But it just reminded me of what it's like, that impatience, and that I've got to get this done, and how difficult, but yet exciting it is in early recovery. And I just had the most incredible experience there, and working with some people and being with some people whom I love tremendously. And then my travels continued on to the south. I wanted to go, as you know, I go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina all the time. And first I went to a city called Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. It's up in the eastern part of North Carolina, very close to the Virginia line.
And we have affiliates there.
We have a lot of affiliates there, really all the way from Richmond, Virginia, through Wilson, North Carolina, all the way from the end of Virginia, completely almost across the state. And Trudge the Road has become an incredible part of the recovering community within these cities. I was absolutely amazed. And I want to say hi, if all I can, to all the people in the Roanoke Rapids group of Alcoholics Anonymous, which coincidentally's address is 1212 10th Street. And the wonderful welcome they gave me, and the praise they gave to Trudge the Road, and I'm just incredibly grateful, and it was just a fantastic experience.
Now, I think this plays into what you always talk about, and that's if you have some of those non-related AA announcements or NA announcements when you get to a meeting, maybe you could bring up Trudge the Road and let everybody know about it.
If you would, we would appreciate that immensely. Go to YouTube, and again, just in the search engine, put Trudge the Road Radio. All of the episodes will come up. And this is especially helpful, and this is what I received in some feedback from folks who didn't have a chance to do a meeting that day, or that week, or whatever, or even just needed something at the moment and could just go on, and there it was. And we've been so blessed by Caron to have had so many wonderful guests who have such incredible knowledge, information, compassion, and love that makes this program so successful.
We're going to talk a little bit about New Year's, because it is a new year, and in the non-addicted world, everybody makes New Year's resolutions. I mean, it's the big thing. You hear about it everywhere. I mean, news shows are saying, what are your New Year's resolutions for this year? Well, us in the recovering community don't make New Year's resolutions. Every day we resolve to stay sober. I mean, it's a daily thing.
It's a one day at a time thing, right? I'm going to resolve today to be. Now, it's still okay to, not to plan to do things better in your life as the year progresses. But for us, when I make a New Year's resolution, it's always a little bit out of proportion. All right, on January 1st, I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to spend more time with my family. I'm going to work harder. All of these things that are just impossible to be able to do all at once. But that's kind of the way we are. It's that all or nothing thinking, and very difficult for us to compartmentalize different types of behaviors or habits that need to be dealt with and do them one thing at a time.
Well, you talk about new beginnings. I mean, a new year obviously is a feeling of a new beginning, but same when we get into recovery. When we first get into recovery, and I think I mentioned this to you off the air, if you'd have come to me on July 24th, 2001, 1 week after I finally got myself clean, the last time I used, I would have told you that in the next month, I was going to have a new car, I was going to have a new house, I was going to have a new job, I was going to have money in the bank. I was rolling, man. I was on that, as they call it, a pink cloud. I had the Peter Pan syndrome going on. Everything was going to be wonderful, and I was really going to make it. And basically what I did was I set myself up because it's work. It is constant work. I am 12 years sober now, and I still am not even close to that 1 week after projections that I had. You have to work at it every single day. And I think when you set these expectations up for yourself and they don't come true, you have a chance of relapsing because you've set yourself up now for depression, anger, resentment, all those things that start coming out of you when you don't hit all these crazy pink cloud projections that you had.
Let me tell you a little bit, explain, what a pink cloud is for those of you. And it's a very common knowledge within the recovering community. I'm on the pink cloud where everything is great. There's no such thing as a pink cloud. There isn't. Let me tell you what that is. There is a period of time in the beginning, I believe, of sobriety where God above just puts you in the palm of his hand and just lets you heal and get better. But You have a job to perform. You've got to help another alcoholic. So at one point, he's going to put you on your feet and say, go now, and I'm right here. I'll back you. I'll do anything, but you've got to take the next step now. And people think that's when the pink cloud, if you will, ends. No, that's when life begins. And those expectations that we get during those pink cloud, can be pretty drastic. It's easy to prioritize issues in our life that are not as important as what the issue is, and that is staying clean and sober. All of those problems, how can I possibly achieve all this stuff for me? And that's alcoholism, because the root of it is selfishness and self-centeredness. I want all of this stuff for me. And it takes a minute to get over that. And that's all designed within the steps. After you get past that first step, where you've surrendered, where the game is over, the war is over. And that's the great paradox of us is, you've got to surrender to win. In that second step where we meet a power greater than ourselves, that is the ticket to solve the problem. Because your problem isn't alcohol, your problem isn't drugs. There is no power in your life. That is the dilemma. We have to find a power by which we can live. You'll discover that in the second step. And in the third step, we take all of those issues, that $25,000 in child support, that angry ex-wife, the disarrayed children, the job, and you give them to this power that has unlimited power to handle them. And we walk away and do the next right thing, because we got to learn. You cannot think your way into good behavior. You have to act your way into good actions. So it starts slow, almost childlike. Make your bed, turn that light off, get a job, go to work, help another alcoholic, and trust, have the faith that in that third, you're turning your will and your life, my thinking and my actions, over to the care of God as I choose to understand him, to deal with those, because the simple fact of the matter is I am not emotionally capable of doing so. I may be able to work and make a lot of money, and I may be able to get real buff and things of that nature, but can I handle those overwhelming problems that will emotionally drag me down? No. We can't. It's the part of the pathology of the disease. But within the program, those problems will be solved. And it's absolutely amazing how quick. I've used this, instead of using the Rubik's Cubes, let me put it this way. Let's say that God himself just walked into this room, God Almighty, and sat down. And let's say there's another alcoholic in this room, and he said, what are your problems? And this alcoholic said, oh, I owe $25,000 in child support. It's a terrible problem. I don't know what I'm going to do. And God says, oh, that's a bad one. That's it. Give that to me. Give that to me. I'll take care of it. What's your next problem? My ex-wife, she hates me. She wants to kill me. I can't communicate with her. Oh, God says, that's a terrible, terrible problem. Horrible. You give that to me. Give that to me. I'm going to take care of that. All right. What's your next problem? I can't get along with my children. My children hate me, and I can't seem to develop a relationship with them. And it's terribly frustrating. It's a horrible problem I can't solve. And God says to you, that's an awful problem. Give that to me. Give that to me. I'm going to solve that for you. And continue through all of these issues till you've given him all of your problems. You've given him everything. And then he says to you, all right, now go out and play. I'm going to take care of it. You know, it just sounds so simple that it sounds almost ridiculous. How often does it work in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous? How often does he solve all those problems and bring them to conclusion? 100% of the time. We've got 75 years and millions of people to prove that. It's faith. It's trust. This is a spiritual program which is designed, this is the 12 steps are a blueprint for living, which are designed to give you the opportunity to have a spiritual awakening. I didn't even mention alcohol or drugs there. That's what this is all about. It is a program, a blueprint for living, designed for you to be able to have a spiritual awakening so you can not only live, but enjoy life. Find happiness, find joy, find freedom. But there is an effort in that. It's not magic. You know, and I'm thinking, as you said, early in recovery, when we get feeling better, you know, a person like myself who drank a fifth of whiskey a day and did so many other drugs, it was when you got all that out of me, well, I felt a whole lot better, you know,
right.
And can thought, but that's physical. You see, what's going on in my head still has not been helped. And that's what needs the attention. And that's what the steps and sponsorship are all about. And a sponsor is so incredible because when I get overwhelmed, when I realize I can't pay this child support, I can't get along with my wife, I can't get a job, I can't. Back to the root of the problem, selfishness and self-centeredness. If you have a sponsor, somebody who's been there before, who's been down that road and knows will help you. And that's what we need. The only thing we know for sure is our old thinking, the way we did things before, was a complete and total disaster. And we don't have any new thinking yet. We're in the process of getting that. So where do we go? Somebody who already has it. And take the suggestions that they have so that we can make them ad practicum to our lives and let the miracle happen. It's as simple as that.
Well, we're going to talk more about expectations because I know that you have a story that you want to share about something that happened to you back in the 90s when you had a job offer and it didn't come through and you had a lot of expectations toward that.
I had huge expectations, and the letdown was almost my death.
And how you dealt with that. Also, Ann Smith, she's coming up next right here on Trudge the Road, which is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, call 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Jerry sits down and talks to marriage and family therapist Ann Smith. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
There is a new phase of recovery, and you see it in the pages of Renew Magazine and at RenewEveryday.com. Renew and RenewEveryday.com are changing the face of recovery for good. Each issue is filled with positive role models, life-affirming stories, encouragement, and ideas to help any life in recovery. Whether you're already enjoying an addiction-free life, have a loved one facing his challenges, or are considering recovery, Renew and RenewEveryday.com can support and inspire you. Join us. Check out RenewEveryday.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment, with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, and offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. You can reach Caron on the phone by calling 800-854-6023, or go to their website. We highly recommend it. It's Caron.org. That's CARON.org. Thanks very much for listening to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road is a radio program dedicated to people who suffer from the disease of addiction to alcohol and to drugs. And every bit as important, family members and friends, we know you suffer tremendously and you've got a lot of questions. And that's what this is about, to try to answer some of those questions and, with the good grace of God, provide a solution to this magnificent dilemma, the disease of addiction. Thanks again for listening. Starting to hear from folks. I've been around the country the last couple of days in marketplaces where this is on the radio, and we've been received tremendously. We are very, very grateful. If you're a listener, whether on YouTube or your local radio station, please let us know. Contact us. Tell us what you think. Tell us what's on your mind, and we'll be sure to give a big shout-out to you. Big shout-out to the recovering group in Roanoke Rapids and Weldon, North Carolina, who hosted me for quite a party for Trudge the Road, and I appreciate that tremendously. Talking about, again, the family and what you have to go through, what you have to endure, the questions that you have, the frustration that you feel. We certainly understand that. And we have a guest here who I believe can answer some of those questions, or at least provide an opportunity for you to go to the next level, to get help that you may need. You may have already seen her on Dateline NBC, read about her in Newsweek, Us Magazine, Red Book, U.S. News and World Report, The Washington Post, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, Psychology Today. Just goes on and on and on, Ann.
I get around.
This is Ann Smith, and God bless you. Thank you so much for being here. I've been a fan of yours for a long, long time. I've said we've met on a couple of occasions, but there's always a meet and greet line to kind of go through. So to be able to have you here is absolutely an honor. You've authored a couple of books. You have a wonderful program, which we're going to talk about here at the Caron, which is called Breakthrough. For those of you who listen on a regular basis, you remember Miss USA Tara Connor was here, and Tara left the radio program from our recording and went right into Breakthrough, and we're anxious to talk to her. But first, if you would, and tell us just a little bit about your background and what brought you to this career of yours, which is so successful and such an important part of our sociology.
My career isn't really something I ever chose. I was led to this career and have enjoyed every minute of it. But it really started out when I was very young. I was like 22 when I came from, well, first I have to say that I came from a family where my grandfathers were alcoholic on both sides. Actually, 3 of them. I had a step grandfather who was also alcoholic.
Ooh.
My grandmother, this is Irish Catholic family.
Join the club, yeah.
Yeah. Right. And my grandmother got divorced at a time when nobody does that.
Unheard of, yeah.
And my father was 12, I think, when that took place. And she divorced someone who lived under the bridge, basically, and then married a couch alcoholic, someone who just sat there and drank beer.
Right.
So I had 3 of them, but I didn't really feel the effects of their alcoholism other than through my parents. So I had no real conscious awareness of it. Didn't know I came from a painful family. I didn't have any awareness at all. I just needed a job. And I had a bachelor's degree in elementary education at a time when that wasn't cool. So I got a job, a county job, working at a detox unit. Street detox, revolving door in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And I loved it. And
Really?
It was funny because they hired lots of people who lasted a day.
Oh, I'm sure.
They just couldn't stand it.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we need to let people know what a detox center is.
Yeah, this was actually a brand new. It was a trend at the time in the early 70s when what they would do is just bring in people off the street. We'd even go pick them up at a bar. And these were homeless people for the most part, often older, but not always. Sometimes they were young and they were living under the bridge. They had a real large population of people that were homeless, on welfare, living on the street. So they would, we'd get word that somebody was in trouble and we'd go get them. And it was very, very 70s. And
Let's rescue. Yeah.
Yes, we rescued them, and we'd bring them in, and they could stay for 5 days. So we'd wash their clothes, we'd clean them up. It was non-medical, but it was connected to a hospital. We were right at a hospital.
So if medical attention was needed, it was available.
So
right.
if they got in trouble, I saw a
DTs.
lot of seizures,
Yeah.
a lot of
Oh, yeah.
DTs. Even including, believe it or not, one of my family members
Seriously.
in horrible DTs.
Just if I could tell everyone what the DTs are. The DTs are delirium tremens. And it's unfortunately, benzodiazepines and alcohol are very, very dangerous to detox off of. And the DTs, for witnessing mine, begins with such things as audio hallucinations. The radiator is talking to me. And then, of course, a tremendous amount of issues taking place with the cardiovascular system. It's life-threatening.
Absolutely.
Right.
It was horrible to watch, but you get desensitized after a while. I worked there for about 3.5 years and saw a lot of it. And the thing that I found that was really most rewarding for me was they would be sober in a couple of days. It would take a while. Mostly it was alcohol back then.
Right.
And so they'd get sober. And then I just liked them. I liked them a lot, and I had no exposure to it. I didn't have a problem with drugs or alcohol myself, and I felt a kinship somehow with the people I worked with. So what we would do is take them to AA meetings at night, and I didn't have any exposure to that, and I loved AA meetings. I wanted to belong.
Sure.
I wanted to be a member.
AA's fun.
It was great.
Yeah.
And there, a lot of open meetings, a lot of speaker meetings. So that's where I got my early knowledge about addiction. And I was just totally taken with it. So we didn't do any therapy. We just talked to people. We rolled their cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
I smoked with them at the time.
Yeah, 'cause it was too expensive to buy them, so we rolled them. I've been in detox a couple of times.
It was an interesting professional atmosphere too. It was so relaxed that our boundaries were non-existent, and so I found my real codependence back then. I would go home and I'd call back in and say, you know, are they okay? Is he okay? Is he okay? It was mostly men, very few women. And when we had them, they were tragic. The women who would come there.
That it's almost impossible to describe that kind of tragedy.
Unbelievable.
I don't think there's words in the English language.
No.
If you could, and I don't want to interrupt your story, but for those who may not understand what codependency is,
yes,
to give them an idea, because a lot of folks suffer from it and don't even know they've got it.
Well, you know what? I don't actually believe in it anymore myself.
Really? Tell me.
Yeah, this is a whole other topic, but I will I'll explain it. I was in on the early development of the term. And
codependency is treatment jargon, basically.
Yes, it is. And that's the problem with the word. So back in the early days, what codependence meant is that the person who was chemically dependent had an impact on their family. And people didn't know what to call it. What would you call a family member? What kind of diagnosis would you give them? And it ended up it was never a good diagnosis anyway. It didn't work for insurance. It didn't work for anything. But what it was that I hurt too, and I'm dependent on what's going on with the addict. That's how it was early on. It ended up morphing into a lot more than that, and it misunderstood terribly. But it sometimes, and in fact, the general public probably believes that it has to do with enabling. It has to do with taking care of other people too much. It takes you out of yourself and creates an obsession with another person. If you look in the dictionary, I mean, any place you look, you'll get a different definition. So it ended up not holding up very well.
Well, that definition, unfortunately, is still pretty well used within the recovering community as a, if you will, codependent.
Yeah.
Continue.
But here's the thing. The thing that troubled me over the years as it evolved was that there was an assumption that there was the addict and then there was the codependent and that they were different. And the truth of it is, they're exactly the same. Once the drugs and alcohol are out of a person's body, they're codependent.
Exactly.
You're looking at the same person because it has to do with a family system. It has to do with growing up in a painful family or spending time in a painful relationship where the connection isn't there and there's distress and chronic, chaotic interactions. Those kinds of things are the things that make people hurt. And in my mind now, it's about being human. It's just about being human. You're a human being. You want to connect. When the connection isn't working, it's no one person's fault. It's two people interacting in a way that's painful. So we can't just put a label on that and say that it has to do with addiction. It's not just about addiction. It's about everything. So then where do we go? So I'm very rarely using the word codependent, but honestly, when I use it about myself when I was young, I was classic in the early definition of codependence. I was married to someone with a problem. I interacted the same way anyone would, enabling, raging, in and out for 9 years, and eventually, that relationship ended. But I was living with the craziness at home while I was working with the people in the detox unit. And honestly, I preferred sitting with drunks over going home.
Phenomenal.
That's the situation I was in. So that's why AA was such a nice place for me in those early years.
That's incredible. It seems almost like a spiritual inspiration driving you into this point.
Absolutely.
Here. And
absolutely.
And just the best thing I can do is relate my own sociology and the fact that I grew up with alcoholic parents, and I loved them, and they loved me. There's no question about that. And I grew up. My parents were from the greatest generation, and. That Protestant work ethic. Daddy worked, and when Daddy came home, Daddy drank, but Daddy paid all the bills, and that's what we're going to go through college. But there was that level of communication from the heart, I suppose would be the best way to put it, that just didn't exist. I knew that love was there. I knew it was there from both of them, not consciously, but but there was something missing, a wall, if you will, that prevented us from being family. Is that typical in in my type of family? In others?
You're really describing something that I wrote about early on, and it was the title of the book is Grandchildren of Alcoholics, and it's something you can only get that by ebook now through my office, which is we'll get to that later if we have to. But the idea was that it's a generational thing, and it really had to do not only with the fact that your parents drank, for example, but that they didn't know what they were doing emotionally. You knew they loved you, but yet sometimes you don't feel loved. It's like there's something blocking that love from getting in. And I think it was that in that generation, and my parents were the same way. Mm-hmm. In that generation, they figured out what to do in terms of behavior, like how you're supposed to behave.
That was clear.
If you're a good parent and you care about your kids and you want them to be successful and you want them to go to college, and so you do all the right things, but they had no idea how to be with us, how to just be. How to say, who are you?
Exactly.
How do you feel? Or I'm sorry that happened to you. Or how can I help you? Or I'm so glad you were born. You mean so much to me. Or to give me a hug or tell me I'm loved or any of that. So I had a great childhood and had no clue whatsoever what to do with relationships by the time I was 16.
Well, I've just gone from interviewer to patient here. So, and I have a list of questions, and I haven't even asked one of them. You're fantastic. We absolutely have to know more, and we're going to do so here in the next segment. Would you please stay with us?
Sure.
That's Ann Smith here from Caron. This is Trudge the Road, sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult male and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. And I might say a wonderful program called Breakthrough, which we're going to learn more about. If you're concerned about yourself, if you're concerned about a loved one, give them a call, 800-854-6023. They will talk to you. They will answer questions. Also, a fantastic website. It's Caron.org. That's Caron.org. Ann Smith is our guest in this segment of Trudge the Road, and we'll be back in just a moment on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Jerry continues his discussion with marriage and family therapist Ann Smith. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
There is a new phase of recovery, and you see it in the pages of Renew Magazine and at RenewEveryday.com. Renew and RenewEveryday.com are changing the face of recovery for good. Each issue is filled with positive role models, life-affirming stories, encouragement, and ideas to help any life in recovery. Whether you're already enjoying an addiction-free life, have a loved one facing his challenges, or are considering recovery, Renew and RenewEveryday.com can support and inspire you. Join us. Check out RenewEveryday.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.
Welcome back to Trudge the Road on the Trudge the Road Radio Network. We are sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. They have treatment facilities in the great state of Pennsylvania, in Florida, and in Texas, offices in Bermuda, Boston, the Big Apple, Philly, and D.C. You can reach them by calling 800-854-6023, and they'll be glad to chat with you and answer some of your questions. Or go to their website. It has all kinds of great information on it. It's Caron.org. That's Caron.org. If you're just tuning in first, thank you very much. Trudge the Road is a radio program dedicated to people who suffer from the disease of addiction to alcohol and to drugs. And every bit as important, family members. We know that your suffering is absolutely immense. We know that you're filled with questions, and our goal here is to do our best to answer some of those questions and, with the good grace of God, bring a solution to this magnificent dilemma. We are very blessed today and honored to have with us Ann Smith. Ann is known around the country for her expertise in family care, if you will. And in the first segment, we learned a tremendous amount, and we hope to continue here for the next few minutes, finding out a little bit more about ourselves as what was known as a codependent, and what we can do to bring this dilemma, our own personal dilemma, whether we're addicted or not, to some kind of an emotional conclusion or the start of one. Surviving decisions. Tell us a little bit about that.
People often ask, how did I get this way? They come to us, a lot of recovering people and family members come to us at Breakthrough because they don't understand themselves. Like, why do I keep doing the same things over and over again? Well, there's really an explanation that I'm going to try to make simple because of the time period here. But when we're kids, every single one of us absolutely must attach to our person, whoever that person might be. Usually it's our parents, one or both. And whether it's good or not, we will attach. And what happens is we're competing with whatever the stress is in their lives at the time, with siblings, with economic factors.
Sure.
It isn't just alcoholism or addiction causes this. It's just the stress of life. Life
Right.
is tough. So kids find a way, and the amazing thing is it's like our God-given resilience. We have this ability to find a way no matter what, and we use our own temperament, our own personalities. We use the resources that we find, and we each find our own way. And what we're calling that right now at Breakthrough, just because it's a clear way of talking about it, is a survival decision that, believe it or not, by the age of 3, every human being, not just ones that are troubled, everyone has figured out a way, and I'll put it this way, to manipulate mom and dad.
We just witnessed that I have a 3.5-year-old granddaughter
Exactly.
who to me is just like a little alcoholic.
Well, they're a person, is what they are.
Okay, yes.
I mean, this is the human condition, and this is the message that I'm sending everywhere I go these days. This isn't about any particular dysfunction. This is about being human. Humans won't survive. I mean, if you see what a 3-year-old can do when you don't watch them, I mean, they'll be dead in no time at all. Right. So they have to have connection with us. And so they come up with a way to do it. And in an average family where there's not much stress, it's pretty easy. They just smile a lot, or they get helpful, or they just be really cute and independent, and maybe they'll be funny, and they'll be clever, and they'll just do whatever they do. They'll do cartwheels if it gets your eye. So that's the normal human condition. So when the stress is there, when the pain is there, and it isn't easy, easiest example, kids are in the house, mom is home, mom's sitting in the kitchen, she has her head down on the table, and she's crying. What's happening with the kids at that very moment?
Frightened, confused.
Yeah, they're terrified. They're terrified. And if you had 3 kids in that family at the moment, you would see 3 different versions of what I'm talking about. They would each have their own reaction. One might hide out and pretend it's not happening. One will, for sure, at least one of them is going to be there stroking mom, talking to mom, telling mom everything's okay, asking mommy why she's crying. Are you sad? I love you. I'm here. I mean, a 3-year-old will do this. This is the birth of survival decisions. That's how it starts. Now, if the need for all of that isn't there, in other words, it's not stressful, then it doesn't become chronic. It doesn't become compulsive. If the need is there, if there's distance between the child and their parents, they develop this insecure attachment. And it's shaky enough that they have to get good at manipulating mom and dad to love them. And often there will be a child, and some people will say it's the oldest. It's not always the oldest, but often there will be a child who actually starts to overfunction, where one kid might back up and decide they don't need love all that much. That's another survival decision. You know, none of them are good or bad. Actually, they're all good. You know, anything you can do is good. But some kids will overfunction, and they'll become the ones that become, if it's in their personality, and I have to emphasize that, it's not just because you're born first.
Right.
If you're a leader, if you have a leader gene, if you have a lot of compassion, if you're very sensitive, you may be the one that steps up and starts to take care of mom and dad, or one or the other. And that pattern continues.
You're describing my own family as the oldest sibling was not popular, not really well liked, but a straight A student, incredibly organized, almost anal in things being just where they are supposed to be, and did not like the other siblings because we were really just the opposite, especially me as the budding alcoholic, and that bond between us never happened.
That's the problem with survival decisions, is they become compulsive and chronic, where that child would normally have just been a leader, but still connected to the siblings, still relaxed and comfortable and loved and secure. All of that, you wouldn't have even noticed the pattern. But what happens is, because of the pain and the stress that's in a family, any painful family, it ends up becoming a compulsive pattern for life. And that's why people come to breakthrough. Because the very thing that saved them in the beginning is now kicking them in the head.
I saw in my own sibling, as became older, caretaker to a certain degree, and accepted by my parents. Saying, well, they're going to kind of take care of that, giving them maybe just a little bit more opportunity to be able to live the way that they wanted to live. And there was never that connection. With my dad, we're going to go fishing. We're going to go hunting. I'm going to go to your baseball game.
And you keep trying.
And it never happened, And even today, I'm thinking about this today, and this is 40-some years ago, and I can still, in that little part right here of the stomach, kind of feel that pang of loneliness or rejection. I'm not sure I'm using the right words.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And if you happen to be an optimist, you know how some people are just born optimists, you'll wait forever.
Yeah.
And you'll keep trying. Now, if you're a pessimist and you really say, well, it's not worth it, it hurts too much, you may pull back and stop trying. So you'll have all your issues about that. So some people have issues about the caretaking. Some have issues about, my style was avoidance. My style was distancing. So I'd be the one that would back up, and I would go away from any kind of conflict.
That was my brother.
I was so afraid of it. I was so uncomfortable that I ended up becoming totally self-sufficient, which was in my temperament to start with. Like, you don't do that unless it's in you. It
just popped into my head with Rick, my youngest brother, when any element of conversation would raise a voice that maybe even wasn't this. Yeah, the time that the Vietnam War was on, and there was so much heated discussion going on and tension in that discussion. And I haven't thought about this and since the '60s. And as soon as he was up and gone.
That was me.
As to where I kind of attached myself to it. I got kind of a stimulation, if you will, from it.
Even a distraction from life for some people, that you would want to go near it. Someone else's conflict especially, not your own.
Yes, it was someone else's conflict in two different manners.
Right.
But yet I was able to participate on it and seeing different sides that I could take, even though not really understanding what the issue was. I knew the personalities of the people taking them, and I wanted to attach to, we'll say, Daddy, because I want to be next to Daddy, regardless of what he was saying. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't mean to turn this into a therapy session, but
that's how it's just a very curious thing for all of us. I mean, for me, I was like a chameleon. Like whatever, I was so sensitive and so uncomfortable around any kind of conflict or arguing or even disagreeing. I don't like to watch any of the talk shows where they're disagreeing.
I can't.
I turn it off. I can't stand it.
I have trouble watching intervention on, and I do interventions.
It's not only because I grew up with some of that, not much. But it's me. It's who I am. And one of the messages that I always want to give out every time I talk is, you are who you are, and it's all good. It's your essence. It's that you're a wonderful person, and when you're in stress, you're not looking so wonderful, And if you have an old pattern from childhood that's chronic, you're stuck. And the diagnosis for everybody who comes to breakthrough is the word stuck. That's how we see it.
So can I. I can see in elements of my, and I'll just say this, emotional growth or well-being, there are areas, even after 24 years of sobriety, that I feel like have not developed. And unfortunately, maybe it's just a sense of denial from my disease as I've kind of pushed them aside and taken other things that I can attach and excel to and use those to, am I correct in saying, compensate for this?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And our fallback position is always going to be that survival decision.
Whoa.
Always.
All right. First, I want you to tell us a little bit about, you've written 2 books, and I'm very curious, and I haven't read it, and I'm sorry, Grandchildren of Alcoholics. You've authored another book, too, which we'll talk about. But give us just a little bit of an outline of what it is that you communicate to us in these novels.
Well, the first one was really, The Grandchildren of Alcoholics, was really about what I prefer to have titled Looking Good Families.
Okay.
Families where I've described it actually today, is where the dysfunction went underground. So they behaved well, but they didn't know what they were doing. And it's really that simple.
Let me tell you about my house. It had the most perfect yard on the neighborhood. The car was always shiny. On Sundays when we were going to Mass, every kid had their suit on and was absolutely perfect. And I'm sure that the rest of the neighborhood said, those folks have got it together. And it couldn't have been any further from the truth. You know, looking good on the outside and just falling apart on the inside.
Right. And not even knowing you're falling apart and getting a message that you shouldn't get help for it either, because that's bad.
That was clear. That was absolutely clear. And especially, you know, being a child of the 60s and 70s where, you know, seeking therapeutic advice or therapeutic help was just socially taboo almost to a point.
Pre-Oprah. I call it pre-Oprah, post-Oprah.
Great.
Thank God we're in post-Oprah now.
Yeah. Amen. So, you know, you've written these books and you've talked to your other book is called Another Generation of Overcoming Perfectionism.
No, it's Overcoming Perfectionism. That's the name of it.
Overcoming.
And I've just finished writing a second edition to it, which includes and incorporates all of the things we're talking about today. So you kind of led into it when you described your family.
Right.
That there are some types of perfectionists where that's what it is. They grow up with it. And some people just have it in their nature. And recovering people, this will be another program we'll do, but recovering people have a tendency to get perfectionistic once they get some information.
Isn't it? You know, actually, I was informed and believe that every alcoholic comes to us, almost a pathology of the disease, as immature and a perfectionist. And when I was informed of that, my response was, I'm not immature, you know, and a perfectionist. I'm not a perfectionist, but I do have a certain flair of everything's not just exactly the way it's supposed to be. I get a little ticked off. Well,
know? It's covert perfectionism is how I describe it in the book. It's like two types. You know, the overt is the one that is so anal, but there are way more coverts, and that's the ones where it lives in your head. You know, where I should, never enough. And that's what a covert perfectionist is like.
Okay, well, then I'll give a personal example. Still, even after 24 years of sobriety, we're coming up on the first of the year. I don't make New Year's resolutions. I live one day at a time. But I'm thinking for what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get along better with my daughter. And I'm going to do this all today.
Right. Start right now.
That's alcoholism, I suppose.
You know what? I don't call it alcoholism.
Okay.
I call it human.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Does that feel better?
Yes.
And the reason I say that is because I'm not alcoholic and I relate to all of this stuff. So it tells me that it really is the human condition.
All right, we're going to get a little short on time, and we're going to have you back as often as we possibly can. But I do have to find out, and everybody needs to know about a program that really is one of a kind in the United States. It's right here. Today, we're very fortunate to be broadcasting from the Caron Treatment Center just outside of Philadelphia. And it's called Breakthrough. And we know a little bit about it from Tara Connor. Tara was Miss USA, and she came to our radio program just as she was about to walk in the doors of Breakthrough. And I will tell you this, and producer Matt and Rich will agree, she was excited. She was like a kid going to an amusement park. I don't know. I may have been a little bit nervous, but she was ready. Tell us about that program. It's only 5 days in residential.
Right. It's 5 days, and it's been around since 1983. I've actually been at Caron twice, 8 years from 1983 to 91 when the program was developed. And then I did it on my own for 17 years and came back about 3 years ago with new and improved kind of version of it. So we've had over 35,000 people go through the program.
I was just about to mention
We
that.
actually had 14,000 people go through in the 8 years that I was here in the beginning. It is very successful. We now have research to back that up. And what it does is it's an adjunct to people who are already in counseling of some form. They don't have to be, but we prefer that they are. And it's an opportunity to do group work where they can get unstuck. And it's very experiential. Not a lot of lecturing or counseling. We don't work on problems. We work on patterns. And they're in groups of 10 2 therapists in the group at the time, and it's considered a workshop. It is not it's not treatment. It isn't.
I think we need to make that
psychiatric.
Clear that
it isn't mental health. It's just for regular people who are not in an active addiction and not mentally ill, in the sense that they're not treated for depression or whatever. They need to be stable.
All right, that's stuck, and I can only use myself. Is it denial? Is it fear? Is it?
It's that pattern.
Okay.
It's the survival decision. They don't know that really when they come in. All they can tell you is, I'm sick of myself. I'm sick of doing the same thing over and over again.
I'm packing my bags.
Right. They all identify with that word stuck.
We're running out of time. We're going to have you back over and over again, but please tell people how they can get a hold of your book.
The Overcoming Perfectionism book is going to be released in March. You can get advanced. You can order it in advance on Amazon. Okay. It's Overcoming Perfectionism, Ann Smith, and that's all the information you really need for that. And the Grandchildren of Alcoholics book, if someone is interested in the generational thing, they need to contact us by email, breakthrough@caron.org, and that's the website, or the email address is breakthrough. Yeah, it's breakthrough@caron.org.
Okay, I'll tell you
and we could get that to you.
Or if you just get a hold of us here at Trudge the Road at either of our websites, we'll make sure you get that information.
You can forward it to us.
The door for you, Ann Smith, is open 24 hours a day. You're a brilliant and wonderful woman, and we couldn't. I'm speaking for Rich and our producer, Matt. This has been a great honor. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We have more coming up for you here on Trudge the Road, which is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services, and the incredible Breakthrough program. So if you are concerned about yourself or a loved one, they'll help. Please give them a call, 800-854-6023. The website, full of wonderful information, is caron.org. That's CARON.org. I'll be back with my partner Rich here in just a moment on Trudge the Road. This is the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up, Jerry tells a story of dealing with an expectation that didn't go his way. That's next on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
There is a new phase of recovery, and you see it in the pages of Renew Magazine and at RenewEveryday.com. Renew and RenewEveryday.com are changing the face of recovery for good. Each issue is filled with positive role models, life-affirming stories, encouragement, and ideas to help any life in recovery. Whether you're already enjoying an addiction-free life, have a loved one facing his challenges, or are considering recovery, Renew and RenewEveryday.com can support and inspire you. Join us. Check out RenewEveryday.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.
Welcome back to Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road, sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron, a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment, with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, and offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, which is caron.org. That's CARON.org. We're your host, Rich. I'm a recovering drug addict, and Jerry, you're a sober alcoholic.
Amen.
And thank you to Ann Smith. Wow, two very powerful segments.
Do we have a new hero?
I think we do. Quickly want to finish this last segment off, which is going to be very brief, because we wanted to accommodate Ann with an expectation story, Jerry. Something that happened to you back in the 90s.
It was after I had a career in broadcasting, obviously, for years that I drank and drugged up. That was gone. And you know, I went in and became a social worker, a chemical dependency counselor, and was satisfied with that. But after being clean and sober, I think it was 5 or 6 years, the opportunity presented itself for me to go back into broadcasting. Someone called, found me, and said, "Oh, man, this great job." It was in sports in the Western Athletic Conference. A lot of travel, a lot of money, and I was so thrilled and thought it was a gift because I'd been doing so good. That ego. And I had a sponsor, thank God, and still do, who said, God really doesn't have anything to do with this. You got a phone call. But my expectation was I had this job, and I was going from, making $20,000 a year to 4 times that, traveling around the country, going to these great, University of Hawaii, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, all were in the WAC at the time.
But you didn't get the job.
Didn't get the job. And I was devastated to a point that really is indefinable, and I was angry and I was resentful towards God. I was resentful towards everybody, and was just filled with angst and hate. And I did not want to drink, and I did not want to drug, but I am an alcoholic and a drug addict. And when we get emotionally overwhelmed, that becomes a problem. And I had made the intellectual decision to drink. And my heart said, don't do it. But my head said, do it. You've got to relieve this pain. And I went to the liquor store. And as I was parked out in front of the liquor store, I tried to pray. My heart says pray, because that's what we're taught in recovery community. When you're in a situation like this, pray. And I could not find the words. And then a song came on the radio, a song that I've heard 1,000 times. You've heard it 1,000 times. I've played it on the radio 1,000 times, but I'd never really listened to it. And just before I walked into that liquor store, I heard these lyrics. It's from a band from my generation, the Beatles. And it said, "Help me if you can, I'm feeling down. And I do appreciate you being around. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please, please help me?" And I drove away from that liquor store and did not relapse, and understood at that point the opportunity we have and the beauty of being able to communicate and pray to God and hear him through music, through philosophy, through poetry. It's all there for us. And that one little segment of that one little song saved my life. And it's a perfect prayer. Help me if you can. I'm feeling down. God, I do appreciate you being around. Help me if you can.
Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. If you are concerned about yourself or a loved one, call 1-800-854-6023, or you can go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org. For Jerry, I'm Rich. Visit our website, trudgetheroadradio.com. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week here on the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
You've been listening to Trudge the Road. If you'd like to catch prior episodes, you can visit our website, trudgetheroadradio.com, and keep listening for new episodes on this great radio station, which is part of the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to Trudge the Road. The opinions expressed in the show are those of myself, Jerry, my co-host, Rich, and our guests, and not necessarily those of the Caron Treatment Centers. For more information regarding the show, go to our website, trudgetheroadradio.com. There is a new phase of recovery, and you see it in the pages of Renew Magazine and at RenewEveryday.com. Renew and RenewEveryday.com are changing the face of recovery for good. Each issue is filled with positive role models, life-affirming stories, encouragement, and ideas to help any life in recovery. Whether you're already enjoying an addiction-free life, have a loved one facing his challenges, or are considering recovery, Renew and RenewEveryday.com can support and inspire you. Join us. Check out RenewEveryday.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Rich, your co-host for the Trudge the Road radio program, and there's a question I get all the time, and that is, how do we catch prior episodes of Trudge the Road if we miss the radio show? And it's very simple. You just go to youtube.com and in the search engine, type in, without any spaces, Trudge the Road Radio, and all our shows will come up. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which can be found by typing Trudge the Road Radio with spaces into the search engine. And thank you from Jerry and myself for listening to Trudge the Road.